Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 192, and tonight, folks, is going to be more of a theme-oriented episode in that we're going to be looking at the lens of online training and Zoom classes on an individual basis and seminar basis, but also bringing different instructors in and kind of doing multi-systems. We're going to cover all this. And tonight, I have three guests with me who are experienced in doing online training, and I'm teaching, I should say, in all the different formats that I just mentioned. And welcoming here, we have Tuhon Brandon Jordon.
Good evening, everybody.
We have Tuhon Latorre.
Howdy.
And we got Guro, Tom Pena.
Good evening, everyone.
So as I mentioned, this is going to be a theme episode. If you have questions during that you wish to ask, just put them in there and I'll periodically check to the right and see what's coming in there. If you also are interested in seeing all these gentlemen have been on before previous episodes. Tuhon Brandon was on episode 133 with Julius. Tuhon Jack, episodes 43 and 84. Guro Tom, 46 and 49. And I can relist those if folks would like to go back and check those. And those, of course, are all on the FMA Discussion YouTube channel, where you can go on there as well and see them. Folks, and if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from and smash that like button. So I want to thank all of you for coming on. I appreciate it. I know we had to do some juggling of scheduling and all that, but I really appreciate when anybody takes the time to come on here. I don't take it for granted that people want to come on and talk to Dean Franco. So I appreciate it. We got Maestro Alvin, Jesse from the Philippines, James Irwin from Connecticut, Royce Ramos. All right. Okay, we're going to jump right into it because we got some questions and all that. And we got Nick Merchant from Queens. All right. So, Tuhon Jack, if I recall correctly, you were one of the first ones to kind of get onto this Zoom and online classes and all that. And I don't recollect if it was just you doing the classes or you were, bringing folks on to do the Zoom seminars with you. But let's just start with go with the Zoom classes that you were teaching regards to PTK. And I remember seeing, more or less that you were covering beginning material and all that. And it looked pretty sophisticated the way you were outlining and mentioning and stuff like that. So, what was the inspiration, and part two, what were your goals?
Well, there was a few things, and they all kind of infused together. But during the pandemic, when it all kind of came to a standstill, I wanted to support PTI members. I wanted to keep their learning going because, as some people know, I happen to be a school teacher as well. I teach art at a public city school of the arts, and I was teaching online Zoom already, teaching drawing and painting that way, and the other half of my life obviously is martial arts. So I wanted to find a way to kind of bridge the two, and I wanted to support PTI members so they didn't feel like they were just kind of left hanging in the dust. So I started a class on Sundays. It was an open class because I figured, while it's not ideal, you don't have issues like the range, the tactility, the timing, that you would have in person. There were still things you could improve on. There's things you could do. And so for me, it was a case of deciding what would be the best thing to work with students. And for me, that ended up being body dynamics, how to focus on how your body moves, how to get the most out of emotion, how do I cluster large muscle groups together to work together, how do I teach people about plyometric stretches, weight displacement, all things that help generate power. And then I would kind of hide it not really hide it, but kind of use the vehicle of a form to do it. And so people could work on a form that built power into their strikes and push curriculum that way. And therefore, hopefully by the time they were able to practice in person again, they would have certain things already in order, and then they could just work on the range, timing, and tactility and figure that part out once they return to in person.
No. Well said. Tuhon Brandon, what did you? It's kind of the same question for you, sir. What was your goal? What was your inspiration? And as far as your students and your system that you were trying to convey.
I mean, I had sort of a similar, my outlook on it was similar to what Tuhon Jack was saying. When the whole thing with the pandemic, started, after time went by, it became pretty obvious that we weren't going to be able to get back together in person anytime soon.
I heard 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks into it, I'm like, and a little bit longer, and I'm like, okay, this might be something that's going to be around for a while. And despite the fact that it's not ideal, I started thinking, well, what can we do in terms of just being able to keep people together? Even for me, a lot of it was even beyond just training, was just want to be able to just have a vehicle to be able to connect with friends, with students, with colleagues in the art, even if we weren't training, just for us to be able to maintain contact and have connection with one another, throughout this whole thing. Because when schools shut down and things like this happen, sometimes even when things resume, I know a lot of instructors that close down their schools. The attrition rate in martial arts is already a high attrition rate as it is. We already know that. People come and go all the time. You have something like this happen, we just started thinking, well, listen, even if things start to resume back to normal, we don't know how many people are still going to be around or come back to training, by the time this whole thing settles. So we started thinking, well, what can we do at least to foster some sense of like, we're all in it together. We're not all dealing with this entirely by ourselves. What can we just have for shared venues? I started seeing, Tuhon Jack was, posting up, himself and Paulo were putting up different things with videos with instructors showing cadenza and things like that. And I just thought, what, this is brilliant. Like, we have to use what we have to do, what we have available. And I think that's one of the things martial arts teaches us, right, is the ability to adapt no matter what type of circumstance we find ourselves in. And I think that, a lot of instructors have been doing video training for years, but this is a totally different platform than what any of us have been used to dealing with. And I thought, this will be a really good opportunity to see how else we can develop and expand upon what we're doing with these arts in a completely different environment than what we're used to. And so, we just started experimenting and playing around with it, from seeing others doing it. And that was kind of the impetus behind it.
No, well said. We got some other folks chime in. We got Bernard from the Philippines. Hi, sir. And we got Chad Bailey. And let's make sure I just don't want to miss anybody. And I don't think I have. Great. And last but certainly not least, Guro Tom, what say you on all that? If you need, I could repeat the question if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's the same as with Tuhon Jack and Tuhon Brandon. It all started when, of course, pandemic hit us. So especially here in the UK, we have been like there was a plan of a longer lockdown, and we don't know basically how things will come out and when things will restart. So because I teach in the fitness as well, not just in martial arts and dance, so I started the Zoom lesson for my fitness students and my dance students as well as a support, because most of them need the regular exercise. Okay, so it's not just so it wasn't really more like for dance and for fitness, it wasn't really more for gaining some skills, but for maintenance. Okay. But at the same time, I started experimenting with Zoom lessons with my students in Lightning to be able to support them, making sure that they don't forget, things because everything's like dragging. But we started with my Lightning guys, we started a few months down the line, because everybody became basically became preoccupied with like working at home, and having to work at home basically pulled them into different directions. I mean, when you work in the office, basically you're 9 to 5, but when you work at home, sometimes you work later than that. You work in different with different time. In different time elements, especially if you're a parent. So that's a problem. And plus, of course, with the size of the spaces here in the UK, like living rooms and everything, we don't have that much space to be able to train inside. So with my guys, we were like, how are we going to go about this? The moment you start swinging the stick, we're gonna hit the furnitures. Just we take a step, we're gonna hit something. So I delayed it a little bit for them until it was summertime, so at least we can work in the garden, or we can work outdoors basically. But yeah, we for a time being, we only did like blade work, and I basically introduced them to more boxing drills. Okay, because we have been doing panutukan or empty hand, but most of the time it's all like with partner, pad works and everything. So it's like, okay, so since you're basically working on your own now, it's basically time to clear some of the mechanics, so that when the moment we start like practicing pad works again, okay, at least you're basically up to date with it, or you haven't lost some of the nuances and all the other stuff. So, but yeah, we had to work with all those limitations that we've got. But yeah, we didn't do double baston, we didn't do single stick for a while, until we managed to get out of the garden. Okay, so in the living room, we're stuck to basically like, okay, let's do some boxing drills, let's do some knife drills. But at least during that time, we managed to practice, we managed to do some of the stuff that we don't normally do in regular training, because we only meet like once a week. So, and everything is preoccupied basically by espada y daga, by doble baston, by single by solo baston. So sometimes putting in the boxing drills, putting in the knife work, putting in the transition from empty hand to knife work, we don't manage to do that very often. So at least we managed to focus on that during this pandemic and during the Zoom lessons.
Yeah, no. I thought that was fantastic answers from all of you. I mean, collectively, couple themes I got from you guys was bring the group together, maintenance, keep them going, and all that overall. And I got a great question from Nick. Nick, that's a great question. I'm gonna put that in there a couple paragraphs down, Nick. All right, question 2. And this starts with Tuhon Brandon. What were your initial thoughts of it, and all that doing this? And part 2, what was the overall feedback from your students and all that? So first part, what were your initial thoughts of it? Second part, overall feedback.
It's a good question. My initial thoughts on it was, I wasn't that crazy about doing it at the beginning, to be honest. I have a lot of respect for instructors, who've been doing this long before the pandemic. It was just foreign territory for me. I had never done it. I never had any experience with it. I had never considered it. We're so used to the convenience of being able to get together in person and have that in-person experience, the touch, the tactile, the timing. There's so many things that you get from being able to be, face to face with a person that you just don't have, when you're doing things, over video. And I wasn't sure how well it was going to work, because I was like, a lot of these skill sets that we train, somebody who has that ability has to touch hands with you to transfer it. You have to feel it in real time to know how to be able to deliver that same type of movement. Sometimes even someone has to correct your posture, just the slightest movement. And it makes all the difference in terms of timing, delivery, sensitivity, power, any of the different body dynamics, all those things. And I wasn't entirely sure if it was really going to be feasible to transfer any level of, of reasonable skill sets on video. And so, that was my initial level of my feeling, was just, I had some apprehension about it. I was like, well, listen, I know it's what we have to do, but, it's all new, and, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I guess it's kind of thing in martial arts, sometimes, instructors, we use our students as guinea pigs sometimes. So it's like, at least we have our own students, sort of like we get in the lab, so to speak. Okay, let's crunch this out. Let's crunch the numbers and see how this works, with our students before we open this up. So at least for myself, I think that was a benefit. Was let's start in house. Let's start with our own students
Mm.
and see how people are picking this up before we open this up to maybe other people from other communities to participate in. At least we can kind of work out the kinks and see what works really well and get the feedback. The feedback that we had was really good. I mean, I think the guys, everybody was just happy to be able to have opportunity to get together, and be able to at least see each other. It improves morale, raise spirits of everybody feeling like, we're not in this, all alone. And I think that's kind of a common feeling that a lot of people are going through around the world is just, when you're indoors like this, there's that feeling of isolation. No matter what, we're isolated. We're in a bubble.
Wow.
So, sometimes just being able to see a friendly face, across the screen makes a huge world of difference. And I know that was certainly the case for myself and for my students, and even for other instructors that I had opportunity to be able to, share space with, Tuhon Jack, other instructors as well, Mike Casto, other people. Everybody was, really had a great time. Everybody enjoyed it. And then we started talking about, well, let's see if we can start finding a way to do more of this. And, some of my students told me they were going and participating in other instructors' classes and watching and seeing how things were going. And then they would give me some feedback on things, which gave me some good insight. Like, oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
We're talking about doing that. Oh, Tuhon Jack did that? Oh, okay. Well, how would we do that inside of Durobio? What would that look like in terms of how we would teach that within our system? So, I found it to be really useful. And, so far the feedback from all of our guys and students has been really favorable. So I think it's something we're going to continue to try to maintain as much as we can.
No. Like I said, it's not going away.
No.
Tuhon Jack, if you want, I can repeat the question if you want.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So, what were your initial thoughts of it? And the reason why I asked this, I was asked to do something, and I got to be honest with you, I don't know if it was my best showing. I was a fish out of water. I've gotten better subsequent to it, from taking initiative and trying to be better. But I remember the first one with Tuhon Arlene for her group. I was just like, I'm looking at the lens. I'm seeing all these little boxes of people, and I'm like, yep. But there, like anything else, you get comfortable with it. And,
you get used to it, yes.
Yeah, but that initial one, oof, man, sleepless nights. That's not a joke. So Tuhon Jack, your initial thoughts of it and the overall feedback that you received from people who participated.
My initial thoughts about it was, from a very selfish standpoint, I don't want to go nuts in the quarantine. You have a pretty demanding home life and work life, and usually the carrot at the end of my week was teaching Bikini. And so I had to do something so, I wouldn't go stir crazy and get cabin fever. And then from a more community-based kind of a perspective, I didn't want to leave PTI members hanging. I wanted to give them something that they could look forward to, give them something that they could progress in. It just so happened that this was coinciding with what I was doing with Paolo on the Global Carenza Project. And while I was supporting PTI members initially, there was a greater interest in what I was doing and how I got involved with Filipino martial arts. So people want to start taking class. And this was a great way for me to do outreach as an ambassador of Bikini Treasure International and pull people and give them a chance to try it out. And it's not for everyone, but they could at least try it and find out and be in the safety of their own home. They don't have to pay for a plane ticket. They don't have to get boarding and hotel rooms. They could try it out for a small nominal fee, and they could see if they liked it, and it would be a safe, area to test it out in. And so it kind of took off because, it's not only was it a non-threatening environment, but I'm not a very threatening person. So things went well from there. And then in retrospect, coupling that with the kind of outreach that the Global Carenza Project gave me, being an ambassador, not just for PTI, but for all of FMA, to get people to be interested in. And it gave me a chance to say, hey, sometimes instructors will get into this kind of territorial thing where they're like, I want that student, I want this student, and they fail to really realize that the market is big enough for everyone. And just because you're good at what you do doesn't mean someone's going to be interested in what you do. So you refer them to someone who can maybe fit their needs. So I might refer someone to Tom, or I might refer someone to Brandon, or I might refer to someone to another instructor who might offer what they're looking for. Not all the answers will reside in any one person, myself included. And so it became a really nice referral system, the Global Carenza Project. And therefore, people who were offering Zoom classes, I could say, hey, go check out this person, or you're in the same city as this other instructor I'm familiar with. Why don't you try them out, whether it's in person or remotely. And it became this really nice system of getting people to be exposed to things that they would never have been exposed to before.
Yeah, no, that cake. And Guru Tom, do you want me to do the question again, or?
Yes, please, so that
Sure.
I can.
Yeah. So what were your initial thoughts of it when you started doing it, and what was the feedback you received?
Okay. Well, of course, doing anything in like video platform has been at one point daunting at a certain stage, because I'm always very self-conscious when I'm in front of the camera. So we've done like a few videos of me doing some instruction, even in the leisure center that I work at. I always have a problem looking straight at the camera, and even much more talking in front of the camera. I somehow got used to it, especially when my first interview with you. So as I've told you, I mean, it was kind of like a hard, for me. But I mean, doing anything like a video online, of course, just like with any instructor, especially FMA instructor, I mean, when you teach somebody, a lot of it, especially when it comes to partner works and everything, it's all about tactile information. That is very important. And for you, that is one thing that I've always wondered how you'll be able to get across in an online session, in a Zoom session. I mean, we can work on the mechanics. We can work on ironing out basically their movements. Of course, range is going to be a little bit of a problem unless you use a prop. Okay, which the problem is not everybody will be able to do it. And just like what I've said earlier on, the limited space that we've got in the UK, it's basically not suitable. I mean, even when I do run my other Zoom classes, like for example in dance and in fitness, I need to look for space even in my own place, and to be able to make sure that I manage to get a good focus. If I want to focus on the legs, if I want to focus on the upper body, I should be able to play with it. So those are my initial problems, and those are basically my source of anxiety to be able to do it. But I took a dive and eventually managed to get used to it and adapt to the situation. So basically, that's how you learn, basically. So you just do it and be able to adjust to what things are happening. So one of the things that I tried with regards to teaching, for example, boxing and knife work, I try to make it interactive. So initially, like for example, when I do jab cross, I go 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 1 2. So I even wear a focus mitt. Okay, so I try to feed them basically using online. So if sometimes I do it like by the number, so I call it 1 1 1 2. And then I tell them eventually, if you see me doing this, just do 1. Okay? If you see me doing this, just do 2. This is 1, 2. This is 1, 2. Now, of course, one of the problems that we experience is sometimes the internet is lagging. Okay? So you can't really expect everybody to do real time. Okay? So you have to give that kind of adjustment. And just like what you experienced when you first did your Zoom lesson, it was like you're kind of looking at this on all the people that is basically in the class.
Oh my God.
So your boxes, right? Yeah, I know. So I was like, okay, so how am I going to check them now? So I started like going, okay, I'm gonna focus on one person at a time. So rather than basically looking at everybody. So I just like when you do it face to face, and you have to feed basically the myth work. You basically focus on one person at a time. So that's what I did as well. And then from that experiment, I managed to get through now. Okay, so how am I going to make my knife work interactive as well? So from teaching them basically basic knife defense movement. So I give them, okay, so if I do this, this is what you're gonna do. I do this, this is what you're gonna do. So again, it became interactive. Okay, but I don't give them too much drills or basically combinations to work on. Okay, so basically just make sure that, okay, we're just basically confining on certain things so we can iron out and polish skill sets. The other interaction that I basically introduced to them was this. John Escudero basically introduced what he calls as a fight box in training. So basically, you've got your safety zone, okay, and you try to basically you try to protect your safety zone by doing, for example, the X or the combat X, okay. So anybody would try to prod on it, okay, you basically do it. And then the escalation by saying go or basically looking for a trigger, okay. Then when you do the trigger or when you say the trigger, then everybody just basically gets into their escalation. Or in other systems, you call it your serrada or your combinations, okay. So that's basically I also started incorporating that, which became at one point successful. And my students basically started feeling the workout. So it was a combination of, okay, let's polish mechanics, let's do some interaction, let's also start developing attributes or combat attributes. Let's start developing cardio. Let's start developing power strikes as well, power movements. Okay, so by doing that, I managed to give them a workout as well. So also like introducing high intensity training, so interval training as well in the workout. So, but it took me a while to be able to get them into like some sort of a stage of progression or sort of like a formula. But yeah,
it sounds like you achieved it.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to initial challenges. So, Tuhon, Jack, what were some of the initial challenges, whether it be, as far as your classes, I mean, whether it was private classes, any initial challenges you experienced?
I would say there was two primary ones. One was, in the Zoom context of trying to find things that would be meaningful to go over. Because again, like everyone's saying, to get the real salience in a technique, you do need the tactility. You didn't need that sense of timing. You do need to understand that range. So things like, I'm going to just, even though people may not know what this is, but in the Canadian church system, there's such a thing as Sagitas, and like, how would I teach Sagitas long range? And so again, I knew I couldn't cover everything because there's certain missing components, but I could teach them the form, teach them the moves, good body dynamics, and actually, this is how I teach it. I teach a layer of coordination, because if you're not coordinated to figure out what your hands and your feet are supposed to be doing, you're gonna have a tough time getting everything else. Once you get coordination down, I'll focus on body dynamics. How do you get the biggest bang for your buck on a technique? So how am I engaging large muscle groups to help assist the smaller muscle groups? And then maybe not the last layer, but the next layer would be tactics. What is the plan? What are you trying to accomplish here? So you're not just trying to emulate what you're seeing on screen. You have an idea of what you're trying to do, and then you'll have to figure out and do some of the homework and road work on your own by being in front of someone and trying to apply some of this stuff. And I explain that to people on screen so they don't think I'm misleading them. So I said, these are the missing components, but I'll give you the components that make the most sense right now. And these are the things that if you have the blueprint, at least you'll know how to build something when you're on your own. The other primary concern was outreach. I would say, and I'm sure there's a number of Piketty Church practitioners listening in, there's this sense of tribalism in FMA where people are divided and, can't go look at that camp because you'll be shunned by someone, or, people are afraid to get out of their comfort zone either because they're not comfortable experiencing something new, or they're basically socially shamed in doing that. And so overcoming that was what I did was I guess I did some of the ambassadorial work from the Global Carenza Project to kind of overcome that and say, there's really no harm, no foul here. If you don't want to come, that's all right. But if you want to come, it's nothing's going to be used against you. It's not like you're learning nuclear secrets and bringing back to your country. You're just trading. You're human just like I am. And making it easier for people to let their guard down. And some of that, and it's happening to this day, is that I'll go take other people's Zooms because, quite frankly, I don't pretend to have all the answers. I take other people's Zooms largely as kind of like a research project of my own to see how other people teach, because I have my own particular methods. I like to see how other people teach. Plus, the topics themselves, like what they choose to teach. How can I compare and contrast that with how I teach the same subject? It's like two science teachers trying to teach osmosis. Like, do they have similar techniques? Do they have different techniques? And it gives me an idea of how different organizations work. And again, it's not a case of trying to sabotage another organization. I don't really believe that we're trying to steal, product secrets. It's a case of, again, if I'm helping some sort of consumer find out what's good for them, I can say, hey, you might be really well off by studying with like J. Jasper Pugal. Or, if this is something that you find to your liking, maybe study with Fred Tirado or whatnot. And so that we can find the best product for the consumer. And that you have to kind of shed your ego because it may not be with you. And I'm okay with that. I just want people to be happy because, quite frankly, any win in FMA is a win for everyone. And this is an important lesson I learned from Dr. Tim Hartman. I guess some people were kind of threatened by the Doug Barkaida being on like the Forge and Fire show. Like, I guess somehow it was a damage to their ego, but I guess, in some circles, Doug was taking heat over it. But the way Dr. Tim Hartman explained it to me, and I thought it was actually brilliant, was that, there might be people who are really interested in studying with Doug, but they don't have the ability to do that in person. But the thing is, like, even if they can, they got interested in Filipino martial arts, so they went to search for some FMA, and whoever was the recipient of that student should be very grateful to the exposure that Doug gave them, or that Dan and Santa gave, or whoever exposed that person to FMA. So when one instructor wins, really all of FMA wins, and I think that's kind of a mentality that needs to be more adopted to overcome some of this kind of seclusionary tribalism that happens, that my product is better than yours and we're going to shun you, that sort of thing. It's really kind of adolescent. And I can say that being a school teacher, because I see the same kind of social ethics, happening in a middle school lunchroom that should not be happening with grown adults.
No, I know. It's the tribal. And I could definitely, that's the whole thing what I brought up on time to time on this show, that the student is the most important part of the journey. It's not the system, it's not the teacher. And if you feel that you can't branch out and experience something else, I just think that is just so wrong. whether it's being instilled in you, whether somebody, warned you, or, gave you advice not to do that. I think that's just terrible that you would put control mechanisms in somebody's path and journey. I think that's god awful, and shame on those who do it. And you heard it here.
Yep.
My stance.
Yep.
Guru Tom, any challenges?
Yeah, initially, finding the space to do it. Yeah, that's the first thing, and finding the time, because when during the first wave, basically of the lockdown here in the UK, so because my wife is the one who's working most of the time, and I do have to do to sit down with my son for the homeschooling. So I did struggle in finding the time to do it with some of my students. Okay, it was basically it became a pressure for me as well. Okay, until everything started settling down. Okay, so and then of course basically finding the space. Okay, inside the house. So those are basically my initial problems or challenges that I basically encountered with it. But once I started settling into the Zoom lessons, then everything just started like flowing through. And of course, the second thing now is basically with my students. Are they willing to do it? Or do they have the time? Do they have the space as well? The same problem as mine. But eventually, when we managed to set it up and we managed to started learning how to basically adjust ourselves in the lesson depending on the situation, then we basically managed to modify what needs to be modified. Like for example, when I teach Tai Chi, it should be like a long form. So what I do is they basically like cluster it into segments, because we don't have the space to do the long form. So we basically have to do it segment by segment. Then started like again working on the mechanics, working on the structure, working on how to do it properly, observing them. So we managed to get through it. Same thing as with dancing. Okay, and like because you can't do the whole thing, so I started now developing a way to be able to introduce the same set of skills, but in an exercise manner. So they're not just basically working on their skills, but they're also working on their core strength. They're working on their muscular strength. They're working on their balance. They're working on their coordination. Okay, so those are the initial problems that I encountered. With the, of course, with FMA, I started getting people from other countries. Okay, of course, depending on their situation, I have to adjust some of my method of instruction. Okay, so I always the thing is with most classes, I'm even in whatever class I do, although I do have a general direction of what I want to what I basically want my students to achieve, but I'm always modifying certain approaches, certain things to be able to adapt to their level, to the limitations that they've got. So yeah, those are basically the challenges that I normally get. And yeah, of course, like what Tuhon Jack has experienced, some would say, I belong to this style. Is it okay for me to learn your style? I said, why not? Nothing wrong with it. I mean, but sometimes if I do feel if I sense a hint that basically their particular instructor would be a stumbling block, I normally say, well, to be sure, maybe you can ask your instructor. But I don't
Yeah,
see
I
anything
guess.
wrong with it. Okay, I myself do it. Okay, I myself I do also like attend other people's session, but you might basically want to at least let your instructor know that you're doing this, and even within lightning itself. So sometimes we still have that kind of like, but sometimes the students basically do it out of respect, because they know that some
Yeah, just
instructors, yeah. So yeah, but once you get past the stage, well, it's basically like, okay, everything is going quite well. So
good. No, good. Tuhon Brandon, any challenges that you experienced?
I think for me, my initial challenges, I mean, it's still an ongoing thing. It's just time, you know, just trying to make the time and make it available. You know, I have two kids. A lot of us have families. I have two kids at home. I have a 9-year-old daughter who's in 4th grade. She's doing homeschooling online. So we're, working with her on that. I have a 2-year-old son. So, we're dealing with all those things as well. My wife works full time online. I work full time as well. So it's just, juggling, all those different things and just trying to be able to carve aside. That was my initial challenge. I had a lot of people that had contacted me before and said, hey, we're going to be doing this thing. Would you like to participate? And a lot of times, I wasn't able to reply or get back to people even for an invitation to come and join and share, because I just didn't have enough time. And I was still trying to work out the kinks behind how am I going to be able to, put all these pieces together and just be able to carve aside enough space to be able to, have something that I felt like was worthwhile contributing. Initially, I felt like, listen, if I can only give it, half an hour or 30 minutes, half an hour, an hour, maybe that's not enough, and, friends of mine were just like, listen, whatever time you can contribute, something is better than nothing. But I didn't want to have people feel like, I didn't want to have people feel disappointed or feel that people feel that they weren't able to get as much out of the experience as they possibly could. I wanted to make myself as available as I was able to, and this way people feel like they're getting the most out of their experience. And so we started playing around with that. It's still, I think for everybody it's still an ongoing juggling act, making sure that we have the time or we have the space. We got kids in the background screaming, things like that. But it's just, it's everything is much more up close and personal. It's more intimate. And I've never been a super fan for being, on camera, being in video, things like that. That's just never been my forte. And so I've had to develop a level of comfort with just, listen, let's just put the information out there. It doesn't really matter either way. People who are interested are going to participate, and the people who aren't will find somewhere else to go. They'll do something else, and that's it. One of my teachers said to me a long time ago. He said, other people's opinion of me is none of my business.
That's true.
And and I had to start, I had to really take some time to really take that in and say, let me really think about, how that works, because it, just thinking about what the two other instructors have just said, even with, things we see, in martial arts and Filipino martial arts as well, a lot of these arts are still very tribal arts. Come from different parts of the Philippines, different parts of the world. Maybe this group, maybe this group of people was at war with this group of people, whatever. Some teachers have maybe a grudge with this person. They don't like this person, whatever. For me, I tend to try to stay out of those things. I think those things are really childish. That's just my own personal opinion.
Incredible.
I don't really have time for this guy doesn't like that guy. That person is like that person. I've always had an open door policy with all my students, because most people who are coming are adults. I personally don't think that grown adults in their 30s, 40s, and 50s need to come to me to ask my permission to go train with someone.
I know.
Your father, your grandfather. Why do you have to come to me to ask permission? Telling somebody is one thing. Hey, I want to let you know I'm going to be doing this and that. Open communication, I think that's good. It's healthy. Of course, it's respectful. But I think that this deference that says, before I can do most basic things that I normally do in my life, I have to ask this other person for permission. Otherwise, I'm betraying them. I just think that, I think that we have to redefine our definition of what that means. Because I personally don't feel betrayed. I tell
I know that whole
go attend so-and-so's class and show me what you learned, because I want to see it.
Yeah.
Like, that's
bring back.
I like to do that. If he's doing a seminar, I'm not one of those guys. I know a lot of instructors are comfortable in their own system. Somebody's on the floor, everybody sits down in the chair and sits like this while their students train. I'm in there training on the floor because I want to participate. Oh, but you're at this level now, you should never this and that. Why? I don't feel like there's any reason for that to exist. And I think, especially with what's happening with the pandemic, I think, one of the common things we're seeing is that whether we like it or not, we're all stuck in this bubble in this same situation.
That's true.
Regardless of title and rank.
So this whole sense of tribalism, I don't like this guy because he's this or that or whatever. This might be the person who maybe is able to help you out with whatever situation you're going through. I mean, there's been so many cases I've seen somebody's losing their school, somebody's losing their home, and instructors say, hey, let's all come together and let's raise money. When previously somebody was like, I don't like this guy, he's a douchebag, I don't want to go to his school and whatever else. But now here you are participating and helping this person to keep their family, keep their home, keep their school. So I think we have to table. I think this situation is kind of forced to have to table a lot of these differences and get around a lot of this pettiness and see that, like, we're really all kind of interdependent upon each other. We're not in days where it's like we're all going to be at war. I don't have any enemies with anybody. I don't anticipate going out and having a knife fight with somebody or things like that. I know we talk about these things all the time, but it's just, the people who are the bad guys to me are not the fellow martial artists. We're the ones who are trained to protect our families, protect our loved ones from people who don't want to support the law, people who maybe want to take things from other people that doesn't belong to them. So I look at everybody else as my ally. That's just how I see it. So I'm like, hey, if you got something to teach, if you can't teach it to me directly, show it to one of my students. And if I have something you find that you can benefit from, hey, whatever I have is yours. You can add it into your system or not. If you want to credit me or not, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, there's only so many ways to move the body. We also have 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 feet. So really, it's just about different expressions. It's just like playing music. Everybody plays music just a little bit different.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's it's still music. So I think this has given us a lot of opportunity, at least for me, to really kind of define a lot of our core values. Of things that are really important to us and things that are just important to me. And it's really kind of forced me to it's helped me to be able to make connections with other people that I might not otherwise have connected with. I mean, people I've heard of for years. Oh, Master so-and-so, Guro so-and-so. And now, maybe I can't afford to fly out to his seminar, but now he's teaching something on Zoom. And so now it's like the next best thing. I get to participate. I get to show up and say, oh, wow, I've always wanted to meet this guy in person. And I get to meet him on video, and then, things go from there. So, those, for me, my initial challenge was just figuring out, like, how am I going to be able to fit in this space and be able to meet and network and connect and be able to exchange ideas, receive feedback from other people about things. And just like it's been said, just like, how do we navigate around, a lot of these, differences and things that maybe different instructors, different systems have and whatever. At the end of the day, it's like all those, it's like, I think a lot of the things that have been like the really big issues are getting put in the back seat because we're realizing, like, the truth is, like, time is short. Just about every week, somebody I know who's a grandmaster, senior grandmaster, we hear this person just passed away.
I know, right?
I mean, it's like, I hate to say I'm not being fatalist, but I'm just saying it could be anyone. We don't know. So, it's like we have to make the best of the time that we have. And, I think the Zoom for me, like, the challenge was, it just showed me just how precious time is, and how important it is to make these connections with others while they're still here. Even if it's just one time to be able to make that connection. I think for me, that's been really meaningful.
Yeah, no, there were great points in there, particularly what you mentioned on kind of reassessing and looking at ourselves and our goals and our value systems and all that. It's almost like one of the positives of COVID was it kind of slowed things down. You know what I mean? Like to force you to kind of look. That's what it did for me. You know what
Oh
I
yeah,
mean?
definitely.
Absolutely.
Look
Yeah,
hard.
look, reevaluate, like, am I on the right path and so forth and so on. And the thing that's frustrating for me is a lot of you guys brought up, a couple of you guys brought up time, like with the interviews and then my private students and all that. I mean, there's a ton of classes I like to join in, man, but it's just like I'm already getting the evil eye and just, coming in, I mean, I'm like, hiding. I'm like, man, so for me to like add just more on and then my instructor from like Brandon, etc. It's just, but there's so many people out there that are just would be really neat. Yeah. But the life of Dean, yeah. But,
so much to do in so little time.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
still.
This is why I'm like, this is why I got these guys doing interviews, because it's just I can't freaking, it's just getting nuts. But so what let's just say here, some of the negativity that you kind of hear and all that. Let's start with Guru Tom. As far as the negative aspects of Zoom classes and online training, not so much. Well, we covered just the challenges from the personal level doing it. Like maybe there was initial camera shyness, maybe it was mentioned time, maybe you know what I mean, or getting acclimated with technology. This is more coming from outside negativity. Have you guys experienced that, or like once in a while, well, how can you learn from online? I mean, kind of along those lines. I hope that helps. Like what say you on that?
So far, ever since I started doing Zoom lessons, I mean, you've got those odd moments wherein somebody would basically ask you, why are you doing this? What is your expertise? What are your credentials? Okay. Up to that point. And then there was one time when I did this class for Arlene. So I was teaching for FMA Max. It was simultaneous like Zoom and live like this.
Yeah.
So I was explaining in the context of basically using knife in self-defense. So somebody butt in. We had a troll saying that I'm just gonna pull my gun out, and said something that is racially abusive, but I didn't actually notice it until Arlene basically told me. So you've got those odd moments. Yeah, but so far, yes, the challenge of what is your expertise? Why are you doing this? Those are the first things that I normally hear from people. I've said the thing is, well, what I normally tell them is, look, basically, if you don't agree with basically what I teach, or with who am I, then basically show me basically what is your take on this one. I mean, there's always a different. I mean, nothing is absolute. Okay, especially in self-defense. Okay, everything is contextual. Everything is relative. So maybe I can learn something from you. So, but please show me. Yeah. So sometimes you get those type of people wherein they feel that they're the all-knowing.
And there's a ones that never tried one either. You know what I mean? So it's giving commentary and opinion on something they never experienced. I always find that fascinating.
It is. That's why even, for example, in my stance now, for example, in social media, is the moment you got a troll, I got zero tolerance for them. So,
Yeah,
I choose my battle. Let's say.
Yeah, you have to when you get
Yeah.
older. Otherwise, you drive yourself nuts.
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't have time for
No,
all these
I
things.
personally don't have
Yeah.
time. Matter of fact, I'm like matter of fact, I intentionally don't look at some of the posts in FMA discussions. So I have to, well, I didn't see it. You know?
Yeah.
But Tuhon Jack, what say you on you receive any negativity or kind of like anything from kind of outside lens, outside sources?
Not that I can think of. I mean, quite frankly, and nothing I would really care about. I mean, I know who I am. I know what I do. And if people like it, they're welcome to join. And if they don't like it, that's okay. Don't come. It's very simple. I mean, if they want to gain something, great. If they feel they know better, then why would you come to my class? So
Yeah.
it's basically that, caveat emptor, but just be a smart consumer. If you know it's not for you, don't show up. I'm not forcing anything on anyone. I'm offering, and then you're welcome to take it if it's meaningful to you, and you're welcome to not, and you're welcome to try it. So I really haven't had any bad feedback like that. If anything, things have been very largely positive. And I guess, and I don't like to harp on negative stuff anyway, but I would say that anything that might have could potentially turn negative. Again, if you as the instructor are in control from the very beginning, doesn't that not also mean you have control during the whole process and at the end as well? So you can use any sort of verbal judo to kind of either diffuse something or redirect it or help people see that, oh, okay, so maybe I wasn't right on this, or maybe it was right under this context, but not another thing. You get people to hopefully self-reflect and see what they're really after by asking that question or behaving that way, and they start realizing that maybe was not the place for it. And it hasn't really happened on Zoom with my martial art crowds. It's more like how I deal with middle schoolers and high schoolers, when I'm teaching art. As the adult, I know how to diffuse that, and people see the error of their ways, and I don't have to necessarily destroy their ego on camera in front of everyone. When I'm dealing with adults, that's a piece of cake. You have, hopefully mature adults that have done some adulting, and they can pick up on the social cues, and that's great. And if they don't, again, I'm not forcing them to be in there. They paid me money to come in and train. You're welcome to do that. You paid the money for it. If you don't want to do that, spend your money elsewhere, and that's okay.
Yeah. Come on, Brandon. Anything negative from outside sources, or like, why are you doing this, or why are you wasting your time?
I don't know that I've had. I don't know. I've had some feedback that hasn't, been always encouraging or positive, but I don't know that I consider it to be negative. People complain, people fuss about things all the time. I think a lot of it just kind of depends upon, what our settings are. I'm not easily offended, even if people are speaking a certain particular way, because, I think there's always ways to be able to diffuse a situation. And I think that when we're across the board, we're across each other on a computer, the reality of it is that there's no real threat. It's just people talking.
Yeah.
It's just chatter to me. So, I kind of take those things with a grain of salt, and I tend to use a lot of humor behind things. I don't take myself too seriously behind a lot of different things. My mother always told me if you can't laugh at yourself, other people are going to laugh at you. So I think it's important to not take yourself too seriously, to be able to have a good sensibility behind things. Even being able to let people say whatever it is they have to say. I've had people who've had something to say that maybe was critical, or maybe wasn't positive, or maybe they were having a bad day, and literally just the way that I spoke with them and was the next day, I maybe got a PM like, hey man, I'm so sorry, I was having a bad day. This thing was going on in my life and whatever. I really appreciate that you didn't like escalate this, and I end up making a complete ass out of myself or whatever. I've had circumstances like that happen, and I've been, and it's been positive. To me, some people, I've had some feedback from people on YouTube. Oh, that technique will never work in real time. Blah blah blah. The thing is about anything, whether you're doing it in person or on video, we're just taking a snapshot of time, a window of time of an opportunity. This angle, this strike comes in. These are some options of things that you can do. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is fixed. People all respond differently. The energy, the feedback, what you get back, it's always in flux. One of my teachers, Grandmaster Pena used to always say when I was a teenager, he used to say fighting is like scrambled eggs. You never scramble the same 2 eggs twice. So it's the truth.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Things are always in flux. You do one movement, the person responds this way. Person strikes the same exact angle, but the energy is completely different than it was the next time. The way you're going to respond to it is going to be different.
It's different. Yeah, exactly.
I think we just have to look at things and just and kind of look at it in kind of like in a realistic perspective, and just understand that everything is just looking at, we're freezing a moment of time and saying, these are some options of some things that you can do. Try this out and see what works for you. For me, I'd rather have more and not need it than not have enough and then actually find myself in a situation where I really do need it.
Yeah.
So,
That's true.
That tends to be kind of how I like to teach and how I like to present things to people. Is like, listen, this technique, you learn this particular movement, it might not be applicable to you today, but 15 years from now or a month from now, you might find a use for it. So rather than discard it, just put it aside for a second. Play with it, experiment with it. You might do it a little bit differently than I do, but at least the essence of the principle, at least I got you thinking about something differently than you were thinking about it previously. And if I've done that, then I've at least done my job. Whether or not you came away with something that you felt directly influenced you by, I did influence you, at least indirectly, because I got you to think about something maybe in a different way that you hadn't considered doing before. So that's been my own experience. There's always naysayers, there's always things like that. People always have their feedback behind things. I look at stuff sometimes, I go, I don't know. But then you see it in real time, you go, wow, shit, guy pulled it off. So I just, I think it's important to do that. And I think it's important to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Everybody expresses themselves in different ways. That's why there's so many different martial arts out there. Like if there was only one way to do it, then we'd all be training only one particular style. Like that would be the end of it, and there wouldn't be this much variety. And I think it would be really boring if that was the case. So, I think of these things like it's martial art for a reason. There's an artistic aspect behind it. So maybe somebody else, you like to do oil painting. This guy likes to do pottery. This person likes to do watercolors. It's still art. Yeah. So it's just at the end of the day, everybody has a different appreciation level of things behind it. For me at least, I always appreciate the time and the energy that any martial artist has taken to perfect their craft. Even if it's something that I might not do, you have to respect the fact that somebody put in 15, 20, 30 years to refine their craft. Like you can't take that away from somebody. No. You put that time in. And I think that those, at least for me, I feel like those are things that you have to look at and that you have to weigh in whenever you're giving any kind of feedback, positive or negatively. You have to look at the time and the energy and effort that somebody put in to be able to put, to learn and to develop the craft. And also, I think there's a level of bravery that it takes for people to be willing to expose themselves to the general public, knowing that there's possibilities.
That's so true. I can tell you that. I had that. When I was asked to do that, I could tell you, I'm going to be honest, I was doubting myself. I was questioning myself. We always do.
We always do.
We're always
part of the journey.
At least I know.
We evaluate ourselves every time.
Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff, Tuhon Jordon.
Very nice.
Brandon Jordon. What we got here? All right, next. Okay, so here's something that kind of piggyback off the negativity. Whether it's a beginner, advanced student, we'll start with Tuhon Jack on this one, and then we'll work our way through. Is can they, sometimes here's what I've heard. Just to kind of piggyback off last subject matter is like, Well, you know, just being getting tons of messages on the back end every day with FMA discussion. You know, like, well, how could you learn there? You know, how can a student in all this? And this is my feeling, but I want to get your guys' opinion. My feeling is if the student is willing to take the information they see, whether it's a Zoom seminar, one-on-one online class, whatever the format is, regardless of format, if they're willing to take that information, okay, and they're willing to seek somebody out and train it with all that, how can it, you know, I'm hard pressed to say like they can't get something out of it. You know what I mean? That maybe is a little more intricate as opposed to, okay, all right, guys, I want you to go X to Arco to VCHOP. And I mean, you know, I'm talking, you know, that's something more involved and all that. So I think online training has an absolute value, not just because of COVID and all that. I think, and maybe it's a good supplement. I think it can go beyond supplemental, pending the students' work ethics. Are they willing to really take what they got, meet with somebody, iron out the kinks, do it and all that? And Tuhon, Jack, what say you on that?
Well, I mean, there's two facets to this. I mean, one is the part that you're focusing on, which is the student side of the coin. You know, what kind of work ethic do they come into? What kind of work ethic can you inspire them to achieve? But from the instructor side of things, I have to take it a little bit differently because, you know, again, I have the additional public school teaching experience and where I have mixed levels in a class potentially. And so what I tend to do in all my instruction, both for, you know, drawing and painting and as well as teaching martial arts, I try to scaffold the knowledge where I'll start off on square A, where all the students are doing the same thing. And then if they feel, if I can visually kind of assess if they're in the right place, then I'll start stacking on top of that. I'll give a stack block B on top of that. So it'll have all the requirements from block A, but now they have a new aspect that they can kind of master and they can see how things dovetail. And then if people are not ready for block B, they can stay on block A. But the whole class is working on something that's related. And the people that are still on block A, but are tangentially hearing things from block B, that, you know, they can see what's down the road, then they can start entertaining, okay, maybe I got to adjust this to get the results that I'm supposed to be getting block B. And then people who get those parts polished can work on block C. And so it is my strong belief that in mixed classes, I could have very advanced people in my classes, coupled with people that we're still working the rudiments. And I have that all the time. I believe I can level the playing field so everyone gets something out of it, because everyone should get something out of it. There's no rudiment so below an experienced practitioner. In fact, all the real advanced practitioners I know understand the value of the rudiments, that everything flows from the rudiments. And then there are people who are, you know, still very much encroach the rudiments and they're just being introduced to them. And when they see an advanced technique, it gives them that kind of like, you know, dangling the carrot in front of them, like, I want that. And then they start realizing they can't do that because, you know, they got to get all their basics in order. But they see that it's possible. And so, you know, when you're working these mixed classes, everyone's combined experiences helps each other, especially if you can keep people's egos calm. And to be honest, I've probably not had any ego issues in my class. Maybe one, but in that case, it was just a case of verbal jujitsu and just allowing the person to spew and get out of their system, and that was it.
Wow.
Nothing an adult could not handle. You know,
nothing an adult could not navigate around.
Yeah.
Tuhon Brandon, what say you on this?
What's the question?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of times I get, you know, just a lot of back end messages on various, and once in a while, stuff will come up because there's a lot of online courses that are being offered on FMA Discussion. So a lot of times I'll get, what's that?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. So I'll get a lot of back messages. You can't believe some of the stuff I get. That could be a show in itself.
Wow.
Yeah. And basically anything ranging from like, well, he's not going to be able to learn that and all that. And my argument is, to me, assuming that the instructor knows what he's presenting, he's doing it well and all that. To me, a lot of times, if the student has a very good work ethic, and they're willing to take the material, seek somebody out, and really trying to get it down, fine tune it, hone it, make it work for them, and all that. I think it actually goes beyond the argument of supplemental, that you can actually get extreme if the student though has a good work ethic and is willing to do the aforementioned.
I think so too. I mean, it's funny you saying that. I tend to think that like this isn't very different than like a lot of us, even before the Zoom, have been on your phone. You call somebody on video and you're working out with them on your phone a little bit on video, or you record a little snippet of something, you email it to your students or whatever. I just think this is like an extended version of this. So, I mean, I think a lot of these things, it has, I think it's influenced as well by like your relationship with the teacher. You build a good, closeness and intimacy, a good friendship with somebody. At least in my own experience, beyond just learning the technique per se, or the essence of the movement or the system or whatever, a lot of information of any martial art is also transferred through your relationship with the teacher. You build a friendship with this person, you build a rapport, you break bread with them, you have a drink with whatever the situation is. There's a lot of information that's transferred just through having a friendship and a relationship with somebody, that when you couple that with the actual martial arts training, whether it's in person or on video, I tend to think that like it makes it that much better, because it's like you connect with the mind and the spirit of that person that you're learning from. You start to learn how that teacher thinks, beyond just in a martial arts context. You develop more of an understanding behind the way that person looks at life, the way that they move, the way they ebb and flow, the way they interact in different situations. And that type of information, I think, also influences how you look at whatever it is that person is teaching you and transferring to you in terms of knowledge. Because now you're not only practicing the movement, but you're learning to think the way that person is teaching you, the way that they're thinking in that particular setting as well. You can put yourself in that person's shoes, so to speak, is what I'm saying. There's a transfer of knowledge that takes place through that as well, which I think enhances the video training. I mean, a lot of people, if you're training with somebody on video, I've seen even you with Seafood Bird Richardson, you can see that you guys have a friendship beyond just you being for him. There, you can see there's a friendship there. There's a relationship that's built over time. It's obvious. Anyone see it. And I think that goes a long ways, to furthering the training. And I think that when you have that coupled with whether it's in person or if it's video, that just speaks volumes. And it takes your training to, I think, at least for me, it takes it to other plateaus that you might not have considered that it could go into. And I think that speaks to exactly what you're saying in terms of it going beyond supplemental training now.
I just think
there's so much more. It's so much richer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I just think it's a good supplement, and I think this is, you mentioned like the relationship. That was an excellent point brought up about the relationship with the person, because now obviously you got to get much more out of it. Just that relationship and all that. So, that was a great point. Guru Tom, do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, doing Zoom lessons or watching doing Zoom lessons, and it's basically a step up of watching videos as a supplement for your training. I mean, I've always done that, whether it is a sport, dance, or martial arts. It's part of your research. It's part of your growth. It's part of acquiring knowledge. It's part of understanding certain things. Okay. I think going from the start of videos or VHS or even Betamax. Okay, when people started like producing Betamax and videos for learning, we've gone to that stage. I mean, I've done that. I mean,
For videos.
yeah, exactly. So the thing now is, of course, sometimes it's not for everybody. Okay, there are some people who can do it. There are some people who might have a hard time doing it or learning from videos, and there are those who can't just basically break things down. But of course, it depends on the exposure of the person. If you already have a prior knowledge of a particular subject, okay, and then you watch the video, then you'll be able to understand it. If you don't have a prior knowledge of that particular subject that you're watching in the video, then
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be harder. I agree.
it's gonna be hard unless basically you ask somebody. Okay, but with technology now, it's actually it's easier for you to be able to cross-reference, to research. Yeah, exactly. And the good thing now, for example, with doing Zoom is you've got somebody to watch you. You got somebody to critique you. I mean, we do it in one-on-one lesson. Okay, even Zoom lessons, so online lessons. So you've got somebody to critique you. Okay, now learning the mechanics, learning how to do certain things, it's one thing.
Yeah.
Learning to do it with another person, like for example, a drill is another thing, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. There are certain drills that you can do with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing as well. But you need to be able to keep them up speed. They have to teach them something else before you can do them in a more interactive way.
Yeah, no,
okay.
Sure.
Pressure testing it is another thing. Okay, you need to be able to get the intention behind from your partner. So different learning from video, okay, has different relevance or even different experience for different people, depending on their goal, depending on what they want to do, and where they're doing it, especially if they're with another person. And of course, again, it depends on their level of understanding of what they're doing. So it's a mixed thing. Okay, but as I've said, this is a step up of what we have been doing back in the 80s.
Black Panther, like Nick.
Yeah,
Merchant.
exactly. Yeah, I know. I do remember back in the Philippines, there's only one shop that basically sells instructional video. So I normally visit that shop, and I try to get those videos as well as a supplement to what I read in books and in other stuff. So we all did. So it's a good thing now that basically,
Paul Vunak.
Yeah. I did. So yeah.
We all got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the benefits of it really depends on at one point depends on the person.
I totally agree with that. Like, how hungry are they? How far they want to go?
Exactly.
How willing they
Exactly.
work.
Exactly.
The resources.
So yeah, but the resources are there.
Yeah.
Make the most out of it.
I agree. Nick Merchant, I thought, had an excellent question here. And so Nick's question is, has the Zoom teaching and all that positively impacted your in-person instruction? I thought this is a great question for him. So let's start with, we just ended Tuhon Jack. What do you think? Has it improved your in-person teaching?
Well, it's interesting because I just returned to some in-person teaching, but I returned to it with the PTI camp. And I would say it absolutely has positively impacted it because there's people who came to PTI camp who might not have otherwise tried it had they not had the Zoom classes.
Good point. Wow.
There's one chap, Jim Wong, who is down in Jersey, and he made the trip up because he took a few Zoom classes. He's been pretty consistent about taking the Zoom classes because he's been finding stuff that he's really using in his dog brother experiences. And when he got there, he said he was not disappointed. So and that's just one case of many of people who came to the PTI camp because of the Zoom exposure. They want to see what this stuff really looked like in person, and it generated the right kind of interest with the right kind of people.
Awesome.
It's true.
Let me see. Tuhon Brandon. What do you, as a major better teacher?
I feel like it has. I haven't had a lot of in-person students yet getting together. It hasn't really happened. I play with my kids at home, so I mean, a lot of us know with a lot of martial arts training, at least with kids, a lot of it's play. A lot of learning and teaching your children martial arts is playing and wrestling and roughhousing with them and things like that, and just developing, those, that muscle, that coordination and things like that. So it's definitely made me more, more present and more aware and just more thoughtful about, how to transfer information, how to transfer knowledge, how we can be more effective in terms of passing this on. It's just this question, it reminds me of, like, even we were discussing earlier, the question you were asking about, people's feedback and things like this with it. I think that the Zoom has been really useful because a lot of systems and things like this, Guro Pena was talking about this a moment ago, saying we had all these videos way back in the day, VHS and beta. I remember the beta back all that. Like that was a big deal. Like if you had beta back in the day, like you had money. I was like, wow,
that's true.
They can afford to have beta. Like that was a big deal. Written movies and things like that. I remember sitting down with teachers of mine and things like that. You see a technique on videos, and you say, hey, so you play this technique, and I'm going to show you how our style, how we can't just do these couple of movements. And then you just, play around with and experiment with ideas like that. But, my point in saying it is that I think the Zoom has been useful as well because it's gotten teachers that maybe otherwise wouldn't be known or wouldn't be seen out there. And I think it also, especially, as we see how things are developing and whatever, I think it's good to have an archive, to have a library of information of what some of these systems look like, because without that, should any instructors or people of some of these different systems, when their time is over and whatever, and there's no one around to teach it, at least there's still some record of what this art looked like, that people can start to extrapolate and come up with some ideas of how to recreate some of these art forms so that it's not completely lost. Because that's always been the challenge for years. People didn't want their information. They want their system to get out there. I don't want to make a video. Nobody can see me or whatever. Well, then what happens if, as a teacher, your system is never passed on to somebody as your inheritor? You don't have anybody that you've ever produced. So now that art goes with you. When you're done, your time is up. There's no record that not only that you existed, but even the art form that you trained or that you taught. There's no record of it at all. So it's just, to me, it's like, I feel like that's a major loss. It's a loss of information. It's a loss of things that could be available to the general public. And I think that having this as a platform makes it possible to be able to see to that we're able to archive some of these different art forms and different expressions. And I feel like it's also a good way of being able to remember teachers or remember art forms. It's a good way to remember these things in a way that maybe we wouldn't otherwise be able to have. So, I think there's a lot of benefit to it, at least for me. And for a lot of people I've spoken to, I think that's certainly one of the major benefits for this. And, I think it's something that people, if they have something to offer, I think it's something that people should really take the time to consider, is to have some sort of record. I remember going to the bookstore back in the day and going through all these martial arts books, Mark Wiley's Serrata books, things like that. Like, wow, let me try this out. You're in the bookstore and you roll up a little magazine in there. Just anything you could to try to get some practice of what this is. And we're in a different age now where we don't have to do that now. We have people who are willing and able to share this information. And I think it's something that it's good for us to take advantage of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Guru Tom, what say you on has it made you a better teacher in person?
Because when you get used to a particular platform of teaching, there are certain things that basically you start forgetting. Okay, and sometimes you take for granted. But when basically I started teaching using Zoom or online as a platform, it actually made me again rethink and reevaluate basically how I approach certain things. Now, especially the fact that um, you can't basically correct the person using tactile uh, ways or methods, or like, okay, but you need to be at least when you started like teaching online, you're basically being forced to adapt yourself into
You're
this new
creative.
platform. It's like, yeah, you have to be creative. You have to be able to rise to that challenge
Yeah.
and be able to actually like be able to bring it again back when you're basically teaching face to face. So at
Mm.
least it makes it easier for you to it gives you more ways or methods basically of delivering your information and delivering your lesson.
Mm.
So it basically, yeah, as I've said, yeah, there are a lot of things that basically like over the years, okay, I've taken for granted when it comes to teaching, but now, okay, let's get back to it again. Let's
Yeah,
revisit it. It's gonna
definitely.
be
Like
more effective. Yeah,
for me
yeah.
personally, it's absolutely maybe better in person because online I have to get really creative and I have to make sure I'm really precise in the detail because
Mm,
I don't have that hands-on with them. So I have to make sure like everything I'm
yes.
explaining is very detail oriented. I'm going through the mechanics, the body positioning,
Mm,
the options from that. So I firmly believe it makes you a better, potentially a better
it
teacher in
does.
person.
Yeah, and slows you down as well when it comes to
Yeah,
giving
yeah, yeah, yeah,
instructions.
yeah. You can't rush. All right, so you guys have done some Zoom, one time or another. You guys have all done Zoom classes together where you're actually teaching different styles. And if I believe, Tuan Jack, you kind of started this and all that. You and Tuan Brandon did one. Let's hear about it. So what, Tuan Brandon and Tuan Jack? I mean, if you want to go first, Tuan Jack, how did it go? Like, what was it? I mean, how did it work out?
Well, this was actually Tuhon Brandon's brainchild about working on this one. He wanted to do a co-zoom regarding footwork. And so he approached me. He approached Robert Neal. He approached Mike Casto, and we just had a little Zoom meeting prior to figure out, some of what we do and how we tie it in together. And so, that specific one was really the brainchild of Tuhon Brandon.
Wow, the future ones to come too. So, Tuan Brandon, I mean, how did it work out? Were you
I
guys
thought it was fun.
over?
I had a great time. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
thought it was really, I had never done anything like that before.
Mm.
So for me, it was also like wanting to push myself out of my comfort zone. I've
Yeah.
been used to doing martial arts seminars and things like that with instructors in person, but never in terms of like a Zoom session. And so my initial thought was, let's take a look at some of the commonalities of footwork that different styles have and different ways that we approach the same topic.
Mm.
Because, one thing we know in any type of martial art is that your hands will protect you, but your footwork is what saves your life. So,
Yeah.
having good footwork, moving in and out of range, things like that, you have to have some level of mobility. There's only so much that this does for you
Those
without.
hands will fail you. Yeah.
That's right. And sometimes people spend so much time on the upper body art that we sometimes forget about what's happening down below with the feet. And so I just said, you know what? Every system has some sort of footwork that they train. Let's take a look at some of the different ways that we maybe approach the concept of footwork, of vectoring and zoning in and out, and be able to see like what are some of the different ways that we approach it, and what's some of those similarities that we have behind how we do that. Because really, like your footwork it's your delivery system. It's like putting the engine in the car. You got your car, but your footwork is how you get the car going. So
Yeah.
And so I said, well, you know what? This is something I haven't seen done yet. Not saying it hasn't been done. I just hadn't seen it. So I was just like, I'm just curious. Let me call up a few guys that are buddies of mine that I know, colleagues, and let's just at least play with this on our own here first and kind of work out the kinks and see how this looks. And if this goes well, this could open up some doors to maybe exploring these things, in a different way. For me, I like to isolate certain movements and certain things. I like to take time to really isolate things for an extended period of time. I know some teachers, sometimes you go to some seminars and you cover a plethora of information, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, for me, I think it's good to train things in a way that, like, where we're comfortable. And I think it's also good to train when you're at that point of muscle fatigue, because it really forces you to really start fine tuning things and to become more aware of your body movement now that you're at that point of fatigue. And so sometimes the only way to get there is to just go through that repetitive motion to where now you start getting to that muscle failure, muscle fatigue. Even your mind now starts to get tired. Now that's, when you really start to work on refining some of these different movements. And so I like to pick sometimes just one topic and say, let's just experiment and play with as many variations and variables as we can with just this one particular topic and see where it goes from there. And so it just happened to be for this time, I said, well, let's just play around with this one thing of footwork. I know Bikini, a lot of the systems, like, they have so many different intricate footwork patterns and things like this. And I said, wow, this is really cool. Okay, well, who else has this? Okay, let's play around with this. I mean, and there's so many different ways of doing footwork. I mean, really, like, you could have months and months of classes, to me, just on that topic alone, on footwork, and being able to see how each individual system and style and teacher, sort of integrates and plays with that concept.
Yeah. No. I mean, it sounds like you guys had a good time doing that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Guru Tom, any joint Zoom you done, and what was your takeaways?
The most recent one was basically when Guru Roger asked me to present an hour of a session together with Master Ray Galang. So, but normally when I do a session with another teacher, we talk about, okay, what are the things that we're going to do? Basically, do you want to present a similar material, or do you want to do something else? Okay, so with that respect, basically I did more of like combat attributes, okay, with regards to knife work, okay, and also tying up certain attributes between boxing and knife work, because Master Ray was more on like teaching like the forms. Okay, so I want the students to get
some contrast.
Yeah. So there's a bit of contrast. Okay, because with my experience with Master Ray Galang's teaching, so it's really more of like memory work. You do your footwork. This is the angle, and this is the counting and everything. So I want to present something that is different. So it's more of like, how do we manage to bridge the drill to sort of like a pressure test, okay, or to do it together with cardio or high intensity workout. So that's basically what I did. In other cases that I have done joint sessions with, again, basically, we try to either do something that is similar or something that is common, okay, and just basically did our like, how do we express it? So, for example, in dance, so we normally have that kind of like, okay, so what are we going to do now in this particular topic or this particular segment in dance? Okay, so how do you express it? How do I express it? So at least that gives the student more flavor to work with. And just like in martial arts, not everybody will be able to dance the same way or play the same way I do. So at least that will give students something to work on, something to basically like try this and see what works for you best.
No, awesome. It's cute.
I would say that
Oh, go ahead, Tuhon.
with doing that seminar with Tuhon Brandon and Guro, Neil, and Master Castro, that was my second. I believe it was my second joint Zoom experience. My first one was actually with Guru Raja Agbulos, which is what brought me
That's
that.
right. That was
Tom had mentioned him, and the connection there is that he basically had found out what I was doing with Paolo on the Global Carenza Project, and I guess he enjoyed it, and he reached out and says, man, we should do something together, and that's when we did our joint Zoom. And once I did that, I got to see how he taught. You got to see how I taught. He taught for an hour. I taught for an hour. It got me thinking that I could get more exposure for other instructors by working with them. Maybe people who I thought needed more time together. It gave me a chance to see how those other teachers taught. And plus, it also gave me some practice as how to deliver a joint Zoom. So, for example, with Roger and I, he did an hour, I did an hour. When I was working with Danny Terrell, another instructor for PTI, we pretty much dovetailed into each other every 20 minutes. So he'd teach 20 minutes on something, and then I'd ride whatever concept he was teaching. We just go back and forth. That we basically improv off of each other. With John Escudero, he was teaching some Espada Daga, and I figured, what we do? We kind of do the Espada Daga thing together. And so we see the Ellis AI flavor to it, and as opposed to the Bikini flavor. But someone else, I did something completely different. Again, maybe we did 30-minute blocks, and they covered something. And I would always let my guest pick what they wanted to do. So, if they'd say, hey, what do you want to cover? I say, pick something that you're comfortable with doing it. And I'm pretty sure I'll find something that's going to be relevant to it. And so they might present first, and then I would go in and riff off of them, or give something in contrast to them. And it worked out really well. And it was a great experience for the students, so they could see the comparison and contrasting of two different systems. But then they also got to see why one system looks at it through one particular lens and another system picks the lens altogether. And so the joint Zooms have really helped me with subsequent joint Zooms. In fact, I got one coming up in November with Lamont Glass from the Paquita Treasure Tactile Association. And the topic he picked was sparring. And I'm thinking, that's going to be an interesting thing to try to teach on Zoom. But I already have mulled things over in my mind. So I'm curious as to how he's coming to the table with it. And then I'll either present what I have in my mind, or I'll riff off of what he's presenting. Because again, most of public school teaching is a level of controlled improvisation. How do you stay on topic and field the questions from the students and stay in the movement? Just like a surfer kind of pays attention to the wave. I feel like I could do that with almost any instructor, virtually every instructor that I've worked with so far. So,
all right, we got a question here from KMA. He's asking, I might have missed it, but Dean, how would you answer the questions you had for others, having done 3 Zoom seminars? In short, I would answer, I think there's an absolute value. I think it brings, connects bridges. I think people that might not normally would have a chance to get exposed to a different system or style have the opportunity now by virtual. So I think it's bringing people in that might normally not would have the opportunity to be exposed to different things. I think it's also brought the community together, in that people are crossing lines that perhaps wouldn't have a reason to. You know what I mean? So that's personally what I found. Far as what you get out of it, I absolutely, again, I still stand by. I think it's up to the person receiving information, what they do with it. Right. Are they going to try to get a partner and see what works? If they don't, they'll have information that they didn't test out. And that's just, and not that that means that's bad, but I think there's so much more you can do with it. So I hope that helps and answers. All right, lastly, is future Zoom plans for each and one of you. Let's start Guru Tom. Any future Zoom plans?
Yep. I'm basically for example, I'm doing some face-to-face class now. We're back to face-to-face. But having said that, even during that face-to-face class, I'm still maintaining my Zoom class, because at the same time, because some of my guys can't still travel to join us.
Mm.
So I'm still like divided during training. But yeah, I'll be doing more Zoom class in the future. So watch this space.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We'll
once
see.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll see the
yeah,
advertisements. We'll see the
yeah,
advertisements.
yeah, we'll do.
Tuhon Brandon, any future Zoom classes, online trying, crossing over with other systems, any of the above?
We're actually planning on doing a little workshop here in the next week or two, just to go over some basics, go over some fundamentals, review over some information, and then I'm hoping I'm actually hoping to have some opportunities to do some co-teaching with some other instructors out there. So
That sounds fun. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's I'm just I'm always watching and seeing. Yeah, I definitely to a Jack. I want to do because the last time he and I did something together, we did something on footwork.
Yeah.
So I definitely would like to do something with him. Covering stick, knife, blade, things like that. I think that'd be fun. Any type of stuff. Because I had such a good time working with him. I definitely would like to do some more workshops with him. And there's just so many people that I've seen and just little glimpses of them doing things. And I'm like, man, that'd be so fun to teach with this guy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know.
I like to watch
it.
what people are doing, and it's like what Tuhon Jack said. You can kind of piggyback off of what other instructors are doing. So sometimes I like to just sit back, watch other people are doing, because sometimes it sparks me to get to think about my art in a way that I might not have ever considered doing. So that's something that I'm hoping to be able to network and reach out and meet more instructors, and if nothing else, be able to like co-teach them, just to even be able to broaden my my horizons and get more exposure, see other ways to how others are teaching. I think it's always important as an instructor to always continue to learn the craft of teaching, because and a lot of arts, you train for an art for so long, you get a rank, says this person is an instructor, whatever. But I think that having a rank in terms of being skilled in one thing is one aspect. The art of actually being a teacher and an instructor, I think, is completely different than your own personal skill sets that you've developed. And I think that sometimes people kind of mesh those things together, and it's not always the case. You can be a good practitioner, maybe not necessarily a good teacher, or be a good teacher, maybe not so much hands-on. So I think, I think it's good if someone's calling themselves an instructor. I think it's just, for me, it's like taking continuing ed college classes. You're always refining. There's new ways, new techniques, new understandings behind how to present information. I think it's good. I think it keeps us honest. And I think it helps us to keep whatever our art form that we're doing. I think it helps us to stay relevant in the times that we find ourselves in. So that's what I'm hoping to do is more of that.
No, well said. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Being a practitioner or teacher, and totally different.
Yep.
Tuhon Jack, because we'll let him go too and get out of here. What as far as future Zoom plans?
Well, I still have the 3 Zooms a week currently. I mean, things might change with the school year coming up, but still have the Sunday morning Zoom, my Sunday Zoom sessions. I have my Monday night Zoom, which is the form and function one, which is really they're all open class, but the form and function class, I'm kind of designed based off of questions that people might have, and see if I can answer them on the spot, find relevance for all the people that attend. But basically what it's turned into is a rudiments class. But if people come in with specific questions, that's the design of that class. And then my Wednesday night class is the rudiments, trying to stay on a lot of the first level stuff. People can get repetitions, things that are absolutely in the first 2 levels of the PTI curriculum, as well as some tangential stuff that's really skill building. And then, of course, the joint Zooms I mentioned with Lamont Glass. I have another joint Zoom that had to be rescheduled with Dr. Tim Hartman, which would be a fundraiser for the late Roel Vera, who passed away in a car accident around Christmas time, and this would be all the funds would be directed towards the family. And there's been all sorts of charity events for that, and it's been quite nice. Tuhon, Arlene, and I have talked a little bit about delivering something. I'm just waiting for her to get back to me. I definitely got Chaz Yanko's ear last night, so I got to work on something with Chaz. And I've been pestering J. Jasper Pugal because I get really fascinated and spiteful over his footwork. So, yeah, it's like, why are you moving like that? Stop moving like that. But it's like amazing and beautiful to watch. So I begrudgingly love him for it. But I'd like to be working with him just because he seems like a super cool dude. So, and then again, like I'm open to work with pretty much everyone. I mean, as long as you're a good human being, you got something to offer, and that you really have the student body in mind, I'm all too happy to work with you.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys. I wouldn't keep you too long. I really appreciate you guys coming on. For folks that are watching, if you would like to get a hold of any one of these gentlemen, I'm going to say Facebook Messenger the best.
Yeah, that's a good one for me.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
We should all three get together and do a joint seminar together one of these days.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Why not? Yeah.
We can do that. We're all here together. We should all do that. We should plan for that.
As long as Tom doesn't wear that yellow suit again, we're okay.
Oh, I left it there.
He just makes himself a bigger target. I don't know what to do about that.
Like the
Bumblebee.
Four Horsemen, right? The Four Horsemen. But I'm down for anything that helps bring the community together and all that. Obviously, that's by me being doing FMA discussion. I'm glad that punishment.
How many episodes have you done now, Dean? You've done like how many hundreds of episodes?
Here's what happened. So when I first started out, late October, pre-COVID, 2019, I was just doing one a week. So COVID kicked in, and I'm like, well, gee, I don't have a lot going on, so I'll start doing 2 times a week. So now it's hard to stop like doing that. Plus, I brought these guys on because I'm trying to incorporate Europe. Now we're working on Central and South America.
Yeah.
So just so everybody can be heard, and so now this is 192. So
wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going strong.
So good. Slow start.
That's awesome.
We're picking up wind. The channels monetize all. Matter of fact, we should be receiving our first money. It's all going to charity. None of us are taking any money. It's all going to charity.
That's awesome.
So people. So anybody listening, if you have not subscribed, if you subscribe to FMA Discussion on YouTube, you're helping us help people. So I can't make it any easier. So knock on wood. So far, so good. You know what I mean?
We'll try to do something.
Yeah, but definitely, if you guys,
I know a lot of us. We plan our evenings around the show.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Really,
I plan my midnights around the show.
I don't take it lightly when people like come out and watch and support. That really touches me. I don't take anything of that lightly. I don't. You know what I mean? So, that means a lot. To me, Tom as well. He's part of the team now. Julia.
Yeah, glad to be part of it.
So hopefully things with Brian Rodriguez, FMA Discussion, finances are in order. We're gonna find out soon, Brian. But you guys, you let me know if you guys want to do something. Sure. I would be honored. But again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it, and I really do. And hopefully I talk to you guys soon. If not, you guys have a good rest of the week and weekend.
You too.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dean. Good seeing you again, Tom. Good
Thank
seeing
you.
Brandon.
All right, guys. Take care.
Okay, you too. Have a good night.
You too. All right, I got you guys. All right. Wraps up 192. Who is up next? Somebody's Friday. And it's escaping me. And I think it's Martin supposed to do it, but he doesn't have a person yet. So, so I'll wait to get the details on that before I give information out that I shouldn't have or that is incorrect. At any rate, if you haven't already, subscribe to FMA Discussion on YouTube, where you can see this episode and other great ones. And remember, all the money that we receive, it goes out to charity. None of us are taking it. So you're helping us help others. Okay. All right. Thank you. Good night. And those who chimed in and watched. Till next time.